Good afternoon. Today's class with you is the third and the concluding part of our class on John Keats's narrative poem, The Eve of St. Agnes. Today we will be discussing this poem from the purely academic standpoint of how far a quintessentially romantic poem, The Eve of St. Agnes, is. Now, the first romantic aspect that we get from this poem is its apparent in its theme, a theme of young love. You see, in the midst of storm and danger, taking place long ago in a medieval castle, certainly gives us a romantic story in a romantic setting. The figure of Madeline is a romantic and almost unearthly one. When we first see her, she is abstracted, set apart, effectively apart from the harsh reality around her. And Keats says, she danced along with vague, regardless eyes, anxious amid looks of love, defiance, hate, and scorn, hoodwinked with fiery fancy. She is represented in the poem as an angel, like a mission spirit, as Keats says. She is referred to again as a splendid angel, my seraph fair, and as a bird, as though a tongueless nightingale should swell her throat in vain. She is described again as a love forlorn and lost with sin unpruned wing. The angel image is suggestive not only of Madeline's beauty and of Porphyro's reverence, but also of other unworldly quality, and indeed, she does not truly wake to reality until much later in the poem, specifically stanza 37, after the setting of the St. Agnes moon. The bird images all suggest the helpless innocence of which Porphyro would take advantage if his love and reverence for her did not prevent it. The purity of Madeline is emphasized again, and very powerfully at that, symbolically by the presence of the moonlight, but is also implicit in the delicacy with which Keats treats her undressing and retiring to bed, which occurs in stanza 26, a scene which could easily have been made vulgar by a misplaced sensuality. But Madeline is no passionless creature. Clearly, her longing is effectively expressed in stanza 23, for example, when Keats says, "But to her heart was voluble, paining with eloquence her balmy side. And on Porphyro's waking her, she began to moan forth witless words with many a sigh, and speak in voluptuous accents." Though we were not told of this earlier, it's clear from the latter passage that Porphyro was the object of a yearning. When we speak of romanticism vis-a-vis the setting of the poem or Madeline as a character, we should also be aware of the fact that this poem is equally a powerfully realistic portrayal of the circumstance in which Madeline is in. Though the poem stands, as the poem stands, the presentation of Madeline cannot be criticized as sentimental, but there is definitely a hint in the poem that had Keats written the whole poem in the same vein, it would have been too sweetly romantic, too far removed from reality to be of more than passing interest to readers. It is raised above mere romanticism by two things. First, by the vivid reality of the scenes and the characters, especially the revelry, and secondly, what Keats himself called the perception of contraries of light and shade. Actuality is achieved in the poem by close attention to detail, so that a scene or event is brought vividly before us. A few examples out of many are the bedman's catching a sound of music, for many a door was wide from hurry to and fro. The picture of Porphyro at Angela's reference to St. Agnes Eve is another powerfully written stanza, where Keats says, and I quote, "While Porphyro upon her face doth look, like puzzled urchin on an aged room, who keepeth closed a wondrous riddle book, as spectacle she sits in a chimney nook." Madeline's meeting Angela on the stair and helping her down, the sounds of music reaching Madeline's bedroom and dying away again as the hall door is shut, which occurs in stanza 29. The porter in an uneasy sprawl, and the bloodhounds eyeing the lovers but staying silent as she recognizes Madeline, are all examples. The revelers, who threaten to be nothing but shadows, are given reality by Angela's words to Porphyro, where she says, "Then there's that old Lord Morris, not a whit more tame for his grey hairs." The different scenes and characters, the bedesman in the chapel, for example, the hall of revelers, Angela, Madeline's bedroom, the movements about the building, give us various aspects of life in the castle, and Angela herself is perhaps the most down to earth and real character of all. When she recognizes Porphyro, she grasps his hand and urgently bids him go. Her language is rather strong, in fact, rather strong for her, though less so in the published version than Keats would have liked. Her reply to Porphyro in stanza 14, for example, has the rambling prolixity of an old woman as she wanders from St. Agnes to murder, to magic, to Madeline, without at all answering Porphyro's question. She is shocked at Porphyro's plan of entering Madeline's bedroom, but is easily frightened and wheedled into agreeing to help him. Much of the romantic import of the poem also lies with Keats's expert handling of contrasts in the poem. A couple of examples should suffice here. The contrasts of the poem, its light and shade, have already been discussed in my first part, but there are also contraries which are interwoven throughout the poem. But nevertheless, none of the contraries shut one another out. What is significant is the contrary that appears at the end, which may appear to be ambiguous, but nevertheless, it is a contrary which lies at the heart of the poem. And the contrary lies in the emergence of new life that is implied in the successful elopement, if we may use the term, and the lying in ashes of a generation of people symbolized by the bedesman and the old lady. So effectively the final contrary in the poem is one of emergence of new life in place of the old. And perhaps the greatest romantic strain this poem rests on is the significant contrary between the new and the old. With this, we come to the end of the third part of our study on the Eve of St. Agnes. Thank you.